Hi, welcome to the Toilet Paper Diaries. Today, we're going to be talking about something that affects about 75% of the population of the planet. It's called Impostor Syndrome, and we're going to show you how to beat it today on the Toilet Paper Diaries.
Hi, Dave. How are you? It is incredible to be in episode 99. We have been going on this show since March 18th, 2020.
My goodness. You know, I was registering my car today, and I couldn't remember when 2019 finished, 2020 happened, and what year we're in now. It's just a blur, because the normal things you'd have is, oh, I remember doing that. I remember we went on holiday, and I remember we did this. Every day is Groundhog Day. So it's really exciting that we've been around for that long, and it wouldn't surprise me if we'd been there for another 10 years. It would feel the same and would be just as fat. So anyway, it's good.
Today's episode, I think it's going to be very interesting because we have been affected by this. I mean, unconsciously, I have suffered from it. Even recently, I have suffered from it. And I'm sure that you have also done. So, for example, in my case, I mean, and this is something that I started doing out of some reflection and preparation for this episode. If I would not have had imposter syndrome, I started thinking I would have been a professional baseball player. That's one of the things that I could have done because I never believed. I mean, I was a very good player, but I never believed that I was good enough to become a pro. And guess what happened? I didn't become a professional baseball player. Now, the second thing was that I managed to get my commercial flying license. And I was one step away from becoming an airline pilot. Possibly by now, I would be flying 777s and 747s and whatever. But I never believed that I had what it took to become a professional pilot. How has it affected you?
Well, if I was to turn the clock back and look at where I was most hijacked by imposter syndrome, I think I would be a rock star. Now, that sounds like a ridiculous idea, but it's not really. I was a musician anyway. I went into the direction of being a DJ. I've worked with many, many rock stars on stage, and it's relatively easy to do big stadiums. But the one thing was missing was, could I have made it? And you've got to do a lot of things to fall into place, but you also have to believe that you can do it. I did everything but be a pop star on the way to where I am. So I think that would have been the one that was different. Without it, I think possibly I might have just got a normal job and done normal stuff. But the imposter syndrome for me was fitting into normal life and not getting hijacked for, I don't know, stereotyping and all the stuff that goes into that. So I think that what it's given me is the ability to be closer to myself. But I do know that in my career, when I get close to the top table and just about ready, I go, ooh, I'll stop there. And I walk away. And there's so many times that's happened.
So the big question for everyone is, how has the imposter syndrome affected your life? So please make sure that you keep on watching. And make sure to give us a like and comment and let us know exactly what your thoughts are, because what you're going to be discovering on this show, it's just absolutely amazing.
Imposter.
Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit, possibly using some metaphors, because I know that you're great using comics and characters, fictional characters. Why don't you explain exactly what is the imposter syndrome for people to understand what that is?
Perfect. Imposter syndrome is that belief that you're not as good as you could be. And it normally splits you into two different versions of yourself. One that's all singing, all dancing, all brilliant, but slightly darker. And one that's possibly showing you the light, but feels a little bit scared that people might find out because you're too honest, too transparent. And in many ways, that's the voices in your head saying you're not going to be able to make it. So you just don't think you can make it. From a point of view of comics and superheroes, you got to look at the characters that split into two sides. So often you've got somebody where they put the dark side as being the evil one. So for instance, If you take Batman and Bruce Wayne, which one was the imposter?
I don't believe this. How could they put me at the kids' table? I'm 14. I'm Batman. No, you're not!
You could be Batman. Sure, I'm Batman. See?
Is he really Batman faking himself as Bruce Wayne? Or let's take, for instance, Superman. Is he really Superman pretending to be Clark Kent? Or is he Clark Kent masquerading as Superman? Well, if you look at these two different versions, we all have two different sides to us. As to which is the strongest one and which is the one that could really make it, you'll find that throughout your entire career, there's certain times that you felt really confident just being you. And you go into the zone. It could be when you're playing sports. It could be when you're doing the accounts. It could be when you're programming something. That is the real you. That's a superhero version of you. It's a bit that's not doing that feels like the imposter. And in many cases, your self-talk takes you down, so you never get to the high heights of what you can really do when you go in the zone.
We call it being in the zone, on a roll, in the groove.
So in other words, the imposter syndrome is like if you're having your negative alter ego. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but I mean, if we talk about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
There he is. There's your man. But doctor, this is impossible. I know it is. But there's your man. I'm sorry, sir. You appear to be serious, but look!
The best way for you to understand this is like if you watch one of those cartoons or one of these movies where you had an angel and then you had a devil in each one of your shoulders. And one was telling you, you can do stuff. And the other one is telling you, no, you cannot do anything because you're an idiot. And then you have like a conflict inside of your head, which is prohibiting you of actually getting that accomplished.
Excuse me, George. Jorge. How you doing? My name is Lucifer.
George, don't do it.
Excuse me, I'm talking. My name is Lucifer.
I'm talking right now.
I'm introducing myself. My name is Lucifer. My friends call me Lucy.
I wouldn't be surprised if we dug deep enough to see that this is actually driven by religious programming. And I don't mean it with disrespect to any particular, but that whole point about you shouldn't try and get above who you are because you're then going to damage everybody around you was driven in many cases by the rich landowners who wanted people to, for instance, if you take that phrase, you know, as poor as a church mouse, like it's noble to be poor, that was created by the rich landowners who owned the land where the churches were. And they told the church, the masters of the church, the pastors or the clerics, keep people feeling small so they don't attack us and take all our money. So I wouldn't be surprised if that imposter syndrome is generated, linked to spiritual reasons, and right across the board, it happens in many, I mean, it's not many cultures, many religions, just to keep people in their place.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if you think about it, 76.9% of all females experience imposter syndrome at one point or the other. And in the case of males, it's 76.4%. So the numbers are very similar. However, it is something that there's some people which are not getting affected by this. What is very interesting is that this is a recurring problem. It's not something that it happened to you once. It happens every time.
I also want to throw in education.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the way through your educational system, you're told you can't do that. You can only do this. You've got a constant scoring system that says you are only as good at this level. And if the only way you're graded is the traditional maths and English and sciences, but nobody teaches you how to do art or nobody teaches you how to do sports, you'll always have that imposter syndrome when you try and shift because everything tells you you're no good at stuff. But you find you're good at something, but nobody believes you. So I think a lot of that conditioning starts at a very young age and works its way up. So when we're talking about how it affects it, let's talk about how it affects celebrities and pop stars then.
From the minute Steve called me until the minute I got on set, I was certain every day that he was going to call me and tell me he'd made a mistake. You know, I suffered from acute imposter syndrome. Like, how on earth did I pull one over him to give me this role?
One of the best examples is Neil Armstrong was at an event with successful business people and creatives, and he looked out over the crowd and he said, "These people are doing great things. All I did was follow orders."
So if you take some of our all-time best and most decorated actors, Tom Hanks, probably the most popular actor of all time, or certainly living actor of all time. Then you've got Kate Winslet, Penelope Cruz, Meryl Streep, won loads of Oscars, but feels imposter syndrome. J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, Jodie Foster, Lady Gaga, one of the top singers of all time. Serena Williams. I mean, if you go for the names, Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert Pattinson, the new Batman, all of them have felt it. Now, what I'd like to say is, clearly, when they go in to be vulnerable, their art allows them to dig deep into that vulnerability, and that brings out some of their very best work. So they feel it and they overcome it. But you've also got to balance it up with people who we know are in the same game, but you'd never say have got that problem. So if you compare Lady Gaga, who comes across as incredibly empathetic and vulnerable, but also a huge pop star, next to Madonna, who's very similar, Madonna comes across as a narcissist, as somebody, for instance, I don't know if she is, but certainly her career has always been, this is me, I don't care, I'm going to do it my way. And her successes have been built on the fact that she's reinvented herself a number of times and got over that hump of fear. Now, one of the ways that she did it, her business model was to work with new upcoming stars as Madonna. So when a new producer came out with a new type of music, she'd make an album with them, like William Orbit, and she made Ray of Light. Completely great album. He gets his accolades, she gets her Grammys, and then she gets another one afterwards. So maybe piggybacking with talent is a way of getting through that.
Who are the only people that do not feel the imposter syndrome? Because I mean, who are the only ones?
I think the ones that probably don't feel it quite so much are people who are narcissists. So they just are in denial about anything that doesn't position them as being fantastic. They just won't listen to it. And people have made a career out of deception because they probably feel it, but they don't let it out and they ignore it to the point where it's not a thing. So you're going to be looking at liars, you're going to look at cheats, you can talk at criminals, thieves, BS artists, and everyone can guess what BS stands for. So for instance, let's take one of the most famous cases in music, and I used to look a lot like Milli Vanilli.
It's a tragedy for me to see the dream is over. Blame it on the rain that was falling. Blame it on the stars.
What happened was they were on stage and they'd won Grammys. They were like the most loved and adored and sexiest double act on the planet, as far as most women at least, were concerned. But then when they're playing on stage, their tape recorder got stuck. And so they couldn't sing live because it kept going roo, roo. And it was revealed that they were faking and miming on stage. Now, many people do fake and mime, but when it came around to them recording a song with their actual voices, it was terrible. They couldn't shake it. They had to give back their Grammys that were recorded by somebody else. And after that, the shame was so embarrassing that they basically, one of them took his own life years later, and the other one's got an incredibly low profile. So maybe while you're winning, it's fine. If you can get away with the murder, it's fine. But if you get caught on the downside, then the impending doom that comes with it is like imposter syndrome times whatever number that you got away with.
There's several different kinds of imposter syndrome. See, for example, rock stars that want to get a lot of attention, a lot of adulation by the fans. Just think about how they felt throughout the pandemic. I mean, they didn't really have any attention whatsoever. So they just look at themselves in the mirror and they were definitely very much affected. In fact, if you don't have that maturity to process that, that can really affect your life. I mean, you were mentioning about the 27-year curse. So, I mean, possibly you can explain what that is, because it's just shocking.
Well, I mean, when you talk about the yin and yang of being an artist and an entertainer, you basically have an amplified life when you're in front of your audience, and then you have to tone it down and switch it off when you're off stage. If you don't do that, you go slightly crazy. So for many comedians, people like Jim Carrey and Robin Williams, and Jim Belushi, they were on fire all the time. And so when you're not on stage and you're trying to make everybody laugh, eventually people just don't laugh so much. So then you get depressed because you're not having such an impact. And so that's a real challenge for comedians. For any artist or any speaker or any entertainer, you need to have that ecosystem built up for you, waiting for the opportunity to go out in front of an audience and get that applause. It's addictive. And if you don't get it, then you start doubting yourself. That's why so many people are going on Facebook Live and just doing anything. For you and I, we found an outlet doing this show. So we could still present, we could still perform. But in the history of music, for instance, there have been a number of people who didn't make it past that whole situation. And the magic number for that depression, catching up with the talent, catching up with the need to evolve and maybe not making it because of the fact that you'd gone so far down your own rabbit hole, you got to look at people like James Dean, died at 27, Jimi Hendrix, 27, Amy Winehouse, 27, Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, 27. You look at Janis Joplin, all these stars all passed at 27. It's like a curse that affects entertainers. Why it happens at that age, I don't know, but certainly what happened to them, we can all appreciate.
Anyone who thinks 13 is the unluckiest number should take a closer look at 27. Once you realize just how many celebrities have died at that age, it starts to get a little distressing.
You can't handle the truth!
Let's say that you were a general. Let's say that you were a lieutenant or a colonel or a sergeant major, whatever your rank is. Not only on the military, but also if you were the president of the company or the CEO and then you retire, you start also having these feelings. So this is also something interesting to keep in mind.
I told you if you were ever a shrimp boat captain, that I'd be your first mate. Well, here I am. I am a man of my word.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't you be thinking that I'm gonna be calling you sir.
No, sir.
Make sure to share this video with other people. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna be giving you 6 signs that you might be experiencing the imposter syndrome and also the antidotes.
Just before we jump in, I want to share with you a fact that I studied years ago. I started studying how to be a lie detector to tell whether people are lying or not. And this fits into the imposter syndrome thing. For anybody who's ever watched that show, Lie to Me, starring Tim Roth, which is a great series about a guy who works for the police whose job is to see whether somebody's lying. I studied that actual skill. And I found it was really difficult to be able to learn to tell if somebody's a liar. Everyone's 50%. Doesn't matter how good you are. You're 50%. They've got 50-50. Toss a coin. Guess if they're lying or not. You're probably wrong. The only people who are excellent at doing it are criminals and policemen. Everybody else has no clue what's going on. So you may not even know that you're lying or people around you are lying about it because it's so in-depth and it's so covered up by everybody. So let's look at the ways that people do see imposter syndrome, the signs, and then we'll suggest some ways of being able to fix it. So let's start with the first one. I'm going to ask a question. Do I experience self-doubt regularly? So that's a huge issue for many people. Part of our conditioning now, especially post-COVID, is to ask ourselves questions about our mental and emotional health and to really check to see how we're doing to create a relationship internally before we share it with the outside world. Now, imposter syndrome, that's partly it. The solution to that is what?
Do it anyway.
Absolutely. Go out, do it anyway, and you'll get over any self-doubt you have. What other examples have you got, Ernesto?
Number 2 is going to be, are you a perfectionist or are you a procrastinator? And I think these ones always go together. Oh, I have to make it perfect. I have to make it perfect. This is a clear issue that you are facing imposter syndrome because of course you want to make it perfect so that nobody will say that you're an imposter, that you're a fake, that you're a fluke. That could really affect people in actually having progress. And that's why you procrastinate. I mean, you can see so many different videos here in YouTube on TED and on different TED Talks that are talking about procrastination. And every single one of them is actually going into being perfect. So the important thing is not to focus on perfection. That's the antidote. Don't focus on perfection, focus on progress. So you need to make sure that you're actually going further little by little. I mean, it's not going to be perfect at the beginning. You start doing it until you have it really nice. So focus more into progress than into perfection.
Absolutely. When it comes to goal setting, rather than thinking, oh, I've got to get this, focus on how you get there, understand the process, and that means you can reproduce it at any given time. So you might not be a perfectionist, but you're certainly a winner and a practitioner, which is what you really need. I'd say number 3 on this is a question saying, are you afraid of being exposed as a fake by people? So people are going to notice, and somebody's going to call you out, just like we said about Milli Vanilli, and say you're not everything that you think you are. Now, everybody feels that at some point, from the point of whether it's built in society, you drive into the wrong part of town and you're suddenly stared at, you go into the wrong shop, you go into the wrong meeting, all these different things. We've all experienced being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the key to it is to act as if you are fine with it, and you will become at doing it. So remember that phrase, act as if you are. Yeah. That way, you're hijacking the way your subconscious mind works. So rather than filling it with the programming that says, I'm not right here, there's negative stuff, it goes, no, we're fine. It goes, really? Yeah, okay, well, let's notice things that make that a truth. And before you know it, you do become that thing. So when you want to start a new career, start acting as if that's your existing career, and suddenly you'll start filling the gaps very, very quickly, consciously and subconsciously.
Many people or many gurus even tell you, you have to fake it till you make it. Now, what's the problem with that specific wording, that you're including the word fake it? So then you immediately are actually feeding the fact that you are a fake. The moment that you actually act as if, that just changes completely in your brain this way of thinking. So that's an important remark for you to have.
Faking until you make it worked when nobody was watching. The problem is so many of you now are saying you're there before you're there.
Think about trying to scare yourself by going boo. You know it's going to happen because you've got to say boo, oh, it's me. Same as if you give yourself programming, I'm a fake, but I'm going to be okay. In the back of your head, you're still saying I'm a fake. That's why it doesn't work.
Sign number 4, it's going to be, are you afraid of failing?
The easiest way to deal with the fear of failure is to be more fearful of not taking action, to be more fearful of settling for a life that is far below what you deserve and what you desire.
The imposter syndrome is just a bump on the road. It's not something, it's not a wall, it's just a bump on the road that you have to go across. So if you're afraid of failure, what you need to do is you have to do it until. And that's the important word. I mean, Jim Rohn always said, whenever things are not working the way you want to do them, you have to do it until they work. And that is actually the antidote for number 4.
I asked the kids, how long should a baby try to learn how to walk? How long would you give your average baby? Before you say, hey, enough's enough. No. Any mother in the world would say, you're crazy. My baby is going to keep trying what? Until. What a magic word. I want you to write it down. Until.
Number 5, do you feel that you need to be the best? Is that what's going on in your head all the time? I know people, again, who are perfectionists, needing to score points, needing to be better than everybody else. People who start getting really upset with themselves if they lose at cards, or even if they're running, or even if walking, not walking fast enough so they get to the front of the queue. If they're at the back of the queue or second in the queue, they're beating themselves up because they're constantly competitive. Now, it's hard to be the best at everything, but here's the thing. The human race is not about being the best, because at some point in the next 100 years, you and I won't be here anymore, Ernesto. Maybe before that, you never know. And nobody's going to care the fact that we'll still watch the Toilet Paper Diaries and we'll be treated like Bill and Ted. And we'll go, hey, Ernesto, Dave, we got all your records. But the thing is, what was said by Oscar Wilde is be yourself because everybody else is taken. Yeah. So don't compare yourself to anybody else. Just be the best version of you. And what you get as results out of your life are never going to be like anybody else's because they don't have the same experiences, the same talent, the same world, or the same views as you, or the same need to do the same stuff as you.
Stop comparing yourself to other people. You're only on this planet to be you.
Albert Einstein had also a very interesting observation. He says, well, if you judge a fish by his ability of climbing trees, he will always feel that he's an idiot, the poor fish.
Your life journey is about learning to become more of who you are and fulfilling the highest, truest expression of yourself as a human being. That's why you're here.
The next and the very last one here is, do you unconsciously self-sabotage.
Oh, see?
In my opinion, there's two types of people in this world. Those who self-sabotage and those are in denial that they self-sabotage.
Part of the way to move forward with this is to start designing your own life, your own personal brand, working out who you are, who you don't want to be, looking what other people think of you, and then deciding how much you want to change to make that happen. Once you are in charge of your own ego and presentation and brand and direction, then the only person that can change it is you and how you react to things that happen around you and drive what happens next.
Feeling like an imposter is a sign of professional or personal growth. Remember that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room? This is exactly what I'm talking about. If you reframe your perception of the imposter syndrome this way, not only it becomes more manageable, but it also becomes empowering. Because you stop being a victim of imposter syndrome, but you start owning the situation. You start purposefully exposing yourself to challenges. So first, do some reframing work with yourself. Stop being a victim and start being in control.
The Hedgehog concept was created by Jim Collins in his amazing books, Good to Great and Built to Last. So we have a look at the diagram of a hedgehog. I mean, you know what a hedgehog is. It's a porcupine, basically. And when it's in danger, it curls up into a ball with its spikes on the outside. And that way it can stop any natural predators getting to it. And what you've got to do is work out what you do naturally, so you're brilliant at doing it, and what you want to do forever. So there's three elements that go into this Venn diagram. First one is, what are you potentially the best in the world at doing, so you can turn around with good bragging rights and say, leave it to me, I'll take care of it. The next thing is, what are you actually passionate about, so you love doing it and you'd never get bored. And the third thing is, what will the world pay for? Not what does the world need, but what does the world want? What will it pay for? And somewhere between those three circles, what you're brilliant at, what you love, and what people will pay for is your own personal hedgehog. And when you do that, it means you're in your zone all the time. So the imposter syndrome will only be when you take that hedgehog to a new place. But when you arrive, you're on a roll because you're already doing what you do really well. And that's a really powerful way to start driving the rest of your business. And it never gets taught at school. And I think that everybody should know it. Now, here's the thing that I found really powerful. And we're going to mention this amongst other techniques. Vision boards are great because ultimately they're creating goals. But what's more powerful than goals is to learn business models of how to reverse engineer those levels of success. Yeah. So rather than saying one day I want to live in this house, I want to drive that car, I'd love to go on holiday here, work out, if you go there, what is the business model you have to adopt to be able to make that happen, and just make your vision board full of business models. That way you can have those things really whenever you want them.
I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living, or get busy dying.
I have to find some ammunition to actually fight my negative alter ego. And the best way to do that is to actually show him evidence that I have done great things. So every time that I'm going to get started with something, what I will do is I will remind myself of stuff that I have done in the past, so that whenever I get that feeling of, no, I cannot do it, I am really afraid of whatever doing it, then I can just show it to my alternative alter ego, and of course pull through whenever the imposter syndrome hits me.
So it sounds a little bit bonkers about talking to yourself, but self-talk is driving most of this whole experience. Yeah. So when you find that your brain says to you, you can't do it, you've got to turn around and counter it and says, who says I can't? You say I can't, or I say I can't, or other people say, that's their problem. I can do this. And what really works well is looking at other people who have done it. Now, they might not have done what you're aiming for, but they went for a similar challenge in their own particular life. And if you work out how they worked it out, then you can apply that. So, for instance, a wheel is round. So if you're going to take a wheel and put it from a car onto a different instrument, a trolley, then it's still going to be a round wheel, even if it's on a different vehicle. So you can cut and paste people's success from them being practitioners in something and use those different ideas for yourself.
Whenever I feel low, whenever I'm feeling that I am doubtful or whatever, I mean, I have good friends as Dave, and I mean, I get in touch with him, and he's always very supportive. I am also very supportive of him. My wife, the same thing. Whenever I feel that I cannot do something, I mean, I just express it. This is one of those things which is very important. Whenever you're feeling this, express it to people that care about you, and they will help you push through that bump. Remember, it's a bump, it's not a wall. And that, I think, it's also very important.
Absolutely. But to get the best effects, sometimes you need to have a professional relationship with somebody, somebody you can hold accountable. So if they don't, with your family and friends, they're great for cushioning the blow and giving you a hug, even if it's a virtual hug. But if you really want to get special results, do the work, invest, get yourself a mentor or a coach who's been there, done it, or can work out the business model with you, because then you can hold them accountable. If they don't do the job, you can get rid of them. But if they do the job, you know that you'll fast track your way to get there. It's very powerful. And one of the things that you and I have done, and we've done it all the way through the Toilet Paper Diaries, we've known each other for over 20 years, have a sense of humor, laugh at everything. It's great stress management. It allows you to be able to just go, you know what, things have happened. All the time, things go bad. If you look at the biggest stars on the planet, whether you're talking about guys like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or even Steve Jobs, look at their history and things messed up many times for them. Look at the biggest movie stars. How many of them had flop movies? Pop stars, how many had a bad album? Take, for instance, Prince. Prince was probably one of the most prolific artists of all time. In fact, when he passed away, they found 15,000 songs unreleased. But a lot of his work wasn't loved by people. It was a bit weird, or they didn't quite get it. Doesn't matter. You still continue to do it because that's what makes you a superstar.
A great example is, as you were saying, the Toilet Paper Diaries. I mean, we went into a completely unknown territory, and we thought that it was going to possibly last for a month. Ended up lasting 14, 15, 16 months. We are not yet in the other side of it. I mean, we're almost there, but we're not yet completely on the side of it. And I think one of the things that really helped us, besides eating, because I gained 12 kilos out of it, it was having a sense of humor. I mean, we were on a daily basis, we were trying to bring a sense of humor to people. We were laughing about the whole thing. And if you think about it, this entire show has been incredibly therapeutic for ourselves, but also for the people that have watched the show. So I think that's just incredibly important. I mean, things are going to happen and you're going to be confronted. So instead of actually taking it with fear, take the philosophy, okay, well, I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a try 2 or 3 times. Let's see how it all works. And I'm going to try it until so that you can actually pull through. Remember, it's a bump, not a wall.
Absolutely. And the great thing about having a sense of humor is sometimes you need to burst a bubble and get rid of that tension. So if you can laugh at it, the endorphins kick in. It means that all the pressure just disappears for a short amount of time. And that puts you in a position where you can actually do something about it. And that's one of the reasons that we've worked together so well for many years, is literally because we can both look at each other, crack up laughing, and suddenly the big problem just disappears. So next, I would say that enjoy the journey, enjoy the adventure. It's not just about chasing the end goal. If it was only about the end goal, in many cases, you could buy it or you could associate with people who've done it and fake it. So it's about the experience. It's about every day. What did you have to do to get from there to here and then keep going, and the things that went wrong and the things that went right. If you think about everything, including the hero's journey and the way that Hollywood stories are written about the guy who starts off with a big challenge ahead of them, they've got to learn stuff, they've got to get a mentor, they're never going to be able to make it, they've got to into wilderness and get things wrong, get things right, get laughed at, and then they get in, they step up, they get to where they need to be, and then things go wrong again, they drag themselves up, and then they finally triumph. That is a story that takes up 99% of Hollywood movies. And why? Because we love it. We love the underdog story. Guess what? You're the underdog. Congratulations. You're the star of your own movie and you're in it. And it's never about the end result. If you watch a film, you see the closing credits, what's the point? It's the way you get there is what the emotional turmoil and challenge and euphoria is ultimately all about.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No! Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
Get ready, because we are closing 100 episodes next time.
Absolutely. I mean, get busy, go for it. That's the important thing. I'm going to ask you a question, Ernesto, before we finish the show. When we first started broadcasting the Toilet Paper Diaries, we were definitely imposters in the TV world. We had no clue really what we were doing. We'd done TV shows before, but never at the scale and never the live broadcasts and everything that's gone with it. Now at 99 shows, do you feel an imposter about live streaming your show?
Not anymore. I feel incredibly confident and I feel an expert. And right now what happens is I start seeing things in a very different way, because now I see what other people do and I know the quality of what we do, and it's a complete different story. So we were not the only ones that got started with doing broadcasts on a daily basis. How many people lasted for this long? There's not one single person, guru, expert, whatever you want to call it, that has gone all the way.
Absolutely. It's your stickability and your ability to get to the finishing line is going to be the ones that make it, versus talent, versus insights, versus everything else. There's a thing we did a show about called grit. Ultimately, if you've got the grit, you'll get what you want out of life.
You
and
can
that's
see
why
grit
we're heading
here. It's just appearing right now on the screen.
There you go. Wonderful. See, it just proves it's true. So with that grit, we're reaching 100 episodes, Ernesto. I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
We won't be imposters anymore. We'll be there to prove it can be done.
And it's time to change the model. I mean, we finished the 100, and now we're going to be changing the model, and we're going to be telling you a little bit more about it very soon. So until episode 100, I hope that you have a fantastic day.